Hello, let's talk a bit about animation today. It was 3.5 weeks since I uploaded last time, and I've been busy trying to decode FBX, the most common used file in Unity. And this is the result. It's animating. It has some glitches and bugs. I do think I know what's going on, so I'm not too worried about it. Actually, trying to decode that FBX file, I would recommend against it. Last video was about OBJ files, 3ds files, and FBX files, and more like on a binary level with the TLVs of them, the type length value encoding of binary files. And I said like, yeah, do it yourself or use this library. I would say like use the library. But I'm stubborn like hell, and here we got the result. We got something animated, and I'm pretty sure I know what's going on when it's glitching out. So I will fix that. The code is like 4,000 lines of code with support code of 8,000, so it's up at 12,500 lines or something like that. Does not have many lines you really need. I have a lot of debugging lines and support that could be ripped out, but that's the base of this. But the result of those 3.5 weeks, a lot of code. And here we got the guy dancing away in the chicken dance. It's a Mixamo rig animation, and if you want to use a Mixamo, then you go to, let's look it up, Mixamo animations. There we go. Get animated. Sadly, you need to create an account, and I can't remember my password as normal, so I can't log in to show that. But you click upload, you upload your character here, you search for an animation, running. Of course, you don't have any run. Here we got the running animation maybe. I don't even think you can play animations here without logging in, and I won't. But you have a number of animations. You can download animations also, and the Unity store has animations. I guess you can record them yourself. I think I've actually tried that later, but that's where you get the animations from. And here you got your character in Blender, and we're not going to go into code now because we're going to go into Blender to trying to understand the basics behind animations and what makes it tick. What does it make this just a static object? Because I mean, that's really what it is. So here we got our guy, and I also have to say that I have used Blender before, but not to the extent that I could navigate around it. I had to learn it also at this time. I never used animations. I have drawn a Formula 1 car in Blender once for a few years ago. That's the experience I had in Blender before going into this, and I should have had more knowledge about Blender before I went into this. But hey, if you are stubborn enough and don't give up, you learn, and that's the point. So if we have the mesh of the character, and you can see something called bone also. Let's go here and select the bone, and then we can go in, and here's like, I just say here we can go in and disable the mesh and we just see the bone structure. Good luck and try that without having used Blender before. No, I mean, you will be lost. So you need to get first like reading the 3D file, decoding the 3D file, figuring out how the Blender works, like cross-check between Blender and the file and figure out what's what and how all this connects together, and then make your code and get the bugs in the code. And horrible. Anyhow, the character is made up of 3 different things. I would say it's probably more, but yeah, main things. You have the mesh, and the mesh is what I'm turning on and off here. Let's get rid of the texture on him, so we can actually zoom in and see all the small polygons. And that's his default pose. It's normally called the T pose, because it's like okay, did it crash? There we go. he got his hands outside like this. He doesn't really, he holds them down a bit, but that's called a T-pose of a character you want to animate, and that's the default pose that you graphical engineer, designer, whatever it's called, draws up your character as, design it as. And that's what we're looking at. And let's put on text here because it looks nicer. And the question is now, how do we get this character to animate? So we have the character and we have the bones of the character, as we have seen. And yeah, you can't see when I switch. I just realized you can't see when I'm switching on and off this because my face is over there. So let's remove my face. So over in this part, you have the scene that contains camera, and I resaved it and reloaded it. So I apparently have 3 cameras and 3 lights. I could probably delete 2 of those lights. That's an interesting part. And the mesh here just going to turn off. And here we got the bone structure. So we can select the bone. Let's select spine, hips. Sorry, that's the spine. The bone structure starts from one bone. I happen to know it's the hips. And you can see that up here, if you go to amateur hips, that's the first one. It says Mixamo hips. I actually expand this a bit. And that one is connected to spine. That's the spine. This is highlighted in yellow here. And we see in the hierarchy up here that we got the hips connected to the spine and connected to left up the leg, right up leg. So that's those two. And if we go down the spine again and click in there, we see that the spine is connected to spine 1, and the spine 1 is connected to spine 2, and the spine 2 is connected to the neck, which neck probably has a head. That's the head. And the spine is also connected to left shoulder, right shoulder, and also, yeah, it goes down to arms, forearm, arm, and hand. So that's our bone structure and our bones. What can we say more about the mesh and the bone? The mesh and the bone together, let's bring in my pretty face. There we go. So the bone, wait, probably better to put me in the lower corner. Is that possible? There we go. I'm learning. I'm learning this stuff. So we have the mesh and the bones, and together they are called the bind pose. So this pose here is the bind pose. The bind pose is when the bones and the mesh align together, like here. From the bone pose, we're going to draw words. Let's see if we can get into... Yeah, I'm still learning how to find stuff. We're going to go to weight paint. So we have our bones drawn out, and we have the mesh drawn out, and they align together. Let's see if we find a good pose here somewhere. Do we have something that's actually got his arms out in T-pose? Doesn't look like it. There. That's close enough. So we got the mesh, default mesh pose. We got the bones, and now we're going to tie them together. So we need to select a bone, and we're going to start with... I mean, I see the right foot is selected here, but I want to start with right foot for one or another reason. We're going to start with left hand. Just click into left hand. There we go. Can we select left hand? We cannot, because that's the wrong hierarchy, of course. It's in mesh, vertex groups. It's called weight paint, and we're going to assign part of the mesh to a specific bone. So that's weight paint, but obviously you do not select the bone up here, you select the weight group. Of course you do. So there we go. That was a wrong hand. There we got one hand. And which hand I selected didn't really matter, just I needed to select one, and yeah, that's perfect. So red here is that bone, so my right hand, my left hand, same as the character. So the bone is sticking up here. We won't see that on the bones aren't drawn, right? So you won't see that, but my left hand and that bone that goes there, that will, when I move that, it will move my hand. All of these vertices on the hand will be moved, will be translated. So the red here is meaning, yes, that the bone influenced that part to 100%. Then we have yellow and green, which means that they influence those parts to a lesser extent, that other bone is influencing those. And that's left forearm, I guess. And here we see how it's mesh painted to the left forearm and how they affect on, actually, if we now scroll through the animation, maybe we actually can see that. Not really. Does he move his hand ever? The hand is extremely static. Question now becomes, can I move his hand to prove that point? I'm not sure. Let's find out. Well, now I'm weight painting, of course. I shouldn't be weight painting. I should be selecting the bone. Can I move it? How do I move some? How do I move a bone? New collection. Can it be translate? Works great, this. I probably should just skip that. I have no clue. And this is what I mean, like you need to know your tools, and I do not. So let's go back to weight painting, because we care about understanding how to draw this in our program, not how to use Blender. Anyhow, bad tutorial on that, because this is not a tutorial. This is videos to keep me motivated to keep going on my coding, and some accountability, and maybe share something also. So here you see at least that the wrist here is green. It was the same on the hand here, so it's influenced by two bones. That part there, and then we have something that's almost red but isn't red, which means that these weight points aren't combined together to 0.1 100%, which means that we need to fix up that in the code later. That one was a fun one, because I was like, what the hell is going on? It looks like horrible, and that's the weight paint. So now we have gone through the bones, we have the mesh, we have the weight paints. And this, of course, continues for the whole character here. So let's split him up. And here we go. And now you can see that the bone has moved. Before, they was inside the character. Let's see if we can get them inside. Select the bones. Here we go. Now they're inside the character again, in the bind pose. So that's what someone drew up in this program. Then we go out and select the whole thing. And now they aren't in the character. Now they are in the animation pose. So they are like we are going to see the character, and you can see that the character actually is like half in the floor here, But that's not how we see it when we animate him. Let's jump from the start here, animate him. So he's up from the floor, he's actually standing on the floor, and he's looking down the green axis here. And over here, he's looking down the red axis, which is x-axis, and the green axis is the y-axis here. So you have the animation skeleton, and they aren't on the same place. They are the same skeleton, but they aren't on the same place. And why they aren't on the same place is because we have some transformation going on. And this becomes annoying like hell. Let's stop him. Let's select something. Let's see if we can see the animation on the bones. Let's select the bone here. For some reason it does not want to show these values here in green should be changing when I drag this back and forward. It's not. So let's try to select it so it actually displays something. So going to have, there we go, selected something. That's fine enough. So down here, you notice when I drag this along, it says rotation W, X, Y, and Z. And that's the 4-dimensional rotation, so you don't get the gimbal lock. If you use just you rotate around the X, Y, and Z axis, you can get, so it looks like no rotation is happening. That's called the gimbal lock. If you rotate in 4-dimensional, that does not happen, but that's not saved into the file. So that's a lie. What's going on here is we have our real rotations. Anyhow, so down here we got something called curves, and let's open that one. So here we see we have Mixamo. Let's take this one. It's hard to read, I know it's small, but you have to trust me on that one. It says Mixamo spine, and on the spine you can modify X location, Y location, Z location, W quaternion, that's a 4-dimensional rotation, W, X, Y, and Z, that's 4 values because it's 4-dimensional rotations. 4-dimensional rotation is really just you define one axis, that's like 3 values, and then you have one rotation around that axis. But it's not the rotation around the X, Y, or Z axis. It's a user-defined axis that you rotate around. And then you got the scale for X, Y, and Z. And when I drag around this, we are just changing the values. So for the key-eyed, those values over there are changing. And I drag this around. And one of these is called an animation curve. And all of this is called the dope sheet. And I know that because I'm best, and it says so up here. So yeah, I didn't know that. I had to learn it. So now we have all information we need to actually read in this. And let's go over this quickly again. What we need to read in our code. So first of all, we need to read in the mesh. So the mesh, that's that one with textures on. And after that, we need to read in the bones. So let's get rid of the mesh. And here is the bones. And the bones has an interesting. Well, I was going to show something, and of course it didn't work, so let's draw it. So the bones has their own coordinate systems, and they start with up as, hope I got this right now, y, which means that all of them have different coordinate systems, and that will be extremely fun when we are reading in this. Which means also, of course, that they have rotations, and all of those rotations are on their own coordinate systems also, or the same coordinate system as the bone. If I would rotate this bone, all of these would rotate with it. So we had the mesh, and we had the bone structure, and the bone structure is called the bind pose. It happened to be, for me, that this coordinate system is 10 times bigger than the mesh coordinate system. So these two coordinate systems that looks like they line fine up here didn't line up when I read up the file. Also very interesting. So the top of my character here is 0.5, but in bone it was 5.0. So yeah, that's an issue. So we're going to take what was bound to this bone with a weight paint. We weight painted the hand before, but now I'm selecting the head here. Going to take that. We're going to take this bone in its coordinate system, scaled down from its coordinate system to our mesh coordinate system, so they overlap. We're going to transform this bone backwards. So we have the coordinate placement of it. So it's placed exactly there. We're going to translate it down to Origo exactly there. And while doing that, we're going to transfer this head down here. So we need the head to be placed down here. And after that, we're going to pick the next bone, and let's take left hand here, because we talked about that one before. So we're going to take this bone that we weight painted in, there we go, these vertices, and a few of those that was combined with the next bone. Take all of those, and since we know is that the X? That's the Y. The Z and the X Z position of that bone, we can go backwards and translate that back with rotation, mind you, in its own coordinate system, down to the Origo. So the hand will be transformed from where it's placed down to Origo. So it has location 0, 0, 0 with rotation 0, 0, 0. And if this is confusing, hopefully it will be less confusing when we move to animations. Let's select everything again, and there we go. I have the bone in an animation pose. And let's see if we can zoom into that. So now let's pretend that all our body parts for this character is all of this character here, his head and arm and all of that different body parts here, they are all just bunched up around Origo. Let's get rid of him. Let's get rid of the mesh there. So all of his head is lying down here. His upper arm is down here. His forearm is down here, and his hand, yeah, it's a big mess down there. And that's true, it is a big mess, because he translated down everything down in there. So they all have location 0, 0, 0, rotation 0, 0, 0, scaling 1, 1, 1 then, but 0, 0, 0. And depending on those animation curves, let's go to curves. Let's go to curves. So let's pick up a curve. Can we get the curve? Hello, curves. Do I need to go? Oh, I need to select the whole model. And we need to go here and select here. Do we get some curves? Sorry for the mess drawing here. So from these curves here, since they contain x, y, and z, w, x, y, and z, x, y, and z, and we know that this Cartesian rotation is a 4-dimensional rotation, and the file is actually not stored as a in the file it's not stored as a 4-dimensional rotation. It's stored as the 3-dimensional rotation around x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. We notice that we have 9 different curves here. So we got, let's draw them here. We got x, y, and z. And then we got some scaling that I'm just going to say is 1, 1, 1. And then I'm going to draw a 0 here just for completeness. You will get that later. And here I will just say that that's an alternative position for an x, y, and z. And a position in what, you might ask. Let's draw this. Maybe you have a clue, maybe you do not. So we have drawn out locations, we have drawn out the scale, and then we need the rotations. And the rotations are scattered at these positions here. And what we have here is a 4x4 matrix. And we use matrices in OpenGL to rotate things. So here we got a rotation and translation scaling matrix. So we have all of those smacked together. And if you want to go and look at how those really look like, let's do that. You go to Wikipedia, and here you got the rotation matrix in 2D, so you just need to find one that's 3D. Here you go. So you got a rotation around x-axis, y-axis, and z, and in matrices they are represented like this. You have cosine of a radiant, and the sine of a radiant, and a radiant you get from an angle, and you need to divide that angle by 757 times 57.27 something. Yeah, so you need a bit of math to do that. But that's what's stored in the file, and that's what you need to read up. Because after we read up that stuff, I know this is a little bit not consist, but maybe some of you get something from it. So let's select our model. Let's get back to our animation, and mind you that the curves for each position, each frame here, they have a value for all of those 9 different values. And we can create a matrix for all these positions. And of course it starts at 0. And this animation ends at 144. So we got 144 frames in our animation. And for each position, and we can create the matrix. And the matrix contains the coordinate system of each bone. So we got from the matrix, we got the coordinate system. It contains a rotation, and it does that per frame. So let's write it like that. So per frame, per bone, we got the matrix. So each bone has a matrix for its coordinate system. The animation is called curve. They have 9 curves, X, Y, and Z, rotation around X, Y, and Z, scaling on X, Y, and Z. Those bind together, we get the matrix from on each frame for each bone, on how that bone will be located in the model space that we later need to translate to world space to draw something. And while doing that, we had the head translated down to Origo. We had the hand translated down to Origo. So we're going to, in the Origo space, we're going to say, hey, that point there, let's find that point there, has an X, has a Y, and has a Z. And we can draw that point in this coordinate system. Well, that's not a head, that's a hand, that's a shoulder, that's an arm actually. Doesn't matter, it's an arm down here at the Origo. So we're going to translate that point that we weight painted in, and we can draw the arm. And the next arm. And the next part. And the next part. And so on. So let's try to prove that the mesh is condensed down to a single point and all the body parts are collected together at that point. So I will just remove that last multiply here. And here we have the body mass of like a non-blown up character, blown up in that sense that all the body parts are placed where they should be and not blown up as like exploded away. But here you see all of the body parts are located around the Origo, and we can see it's Origo because it's rotating around, right? And we see it's rotating around a 0 point there. So everything is located around 0. And if I add in that multiplication again, that takes the bones matrix, translate that to where the bone should be, and that vertex for that head or arm or hand is also translated. And then we got an animation running, but we do not yet have an animation. Let's stop him here. So we have translated up the head position and draw it on our screen, but we do not have an animation yet. Actually, we do kind of, because we have the first frame of the animation. Now I stopped in the middle of the animation, but normally we would have the first frame of the animation. And what we just need to do now is go into those curves, calculate the next matrix, and redo everything. And normally the graphics cards do that per frame for you. They do the matrix multiplications for you. You need to create a shader for it. I'm dumb enough to haven't done that. In my code, I do it before I even send it down to the graphic card. So I have all the frames condensed together as vertices that's going to be drawn one after another. And that's what I think I need to do on the PlayStation Portable to get it to work on this. this guy because I don't think it has shaders. I'm not totally sure. Actually, I will make stuff on this one, but that's how I would do it. And this video now is near the end, and I have nothing left to show. This is like just my brain dump from Blender, and now you know what I know about Blender. And being stubborn also works if you want stuff to start to render. I probably need to go into shaders because this was painful to do, and shaders is probably easier. It's probably still painful, I have to tell you that, because it wasn't easy. It was hard to read up everything from the file. It was really hard to decode what I have read up, to get it into the matrices as it should be, because I didn't know if it was stored as fourth-dimensional rotation. I had to guess. I said the bad word there. I had to guess if it was stored as a fourth-dimensional rotation or not. And I had to guess in which order these matrices were going to be multiplied, which is order. And if you get something wrong, you just get mess on the screen. Let's see if we can get the mess on the screen. Just swap something around here. We swap those around, and we swap just mess up my code a little bit. I swapped around 2 multiplication and removed 1 multiplication. And let's see how that turns out. And here you have what I've been like staring at for 2 weeks. I was like, what's going on? Like, and I've been drawing it on paper, and I'm being just trying it out until I'm like, I'm 100% that my code, first of all, doesn't read up the file totally wrong. Actually reads up the file in like somewhat correct. I think I understand looking at Blender what the pose of him should be, and then stopping in the debugger and like seeing the matrices, like, do they look like I calculated on paper that it should look like? And now they do. If you are stubborn like me, you learn stuff. I now know Blender. I now know the math behind animations. I now know the animation curves. I now know the FBX file format. Probably better than most people around. So yeah, happy coding, and don't give up.